Hey guys, this is just another one of my tutorials. I hadn't done one at Summit Point before, and there was some interest on the forum of me doing one, so here it is. As usual, I'm not going to do any commentary the first lap. I'm just going to let the replay play in full speed, and then after that lap is done, I'll go back and pause and go through each turn and all that. So here's the lap. So there's the lap in full speed. Now let's go over and go turn by turn. Coming into turn 1, you want to brake right before the 3 board, or the set of 3 cones right here. Depending on the wind conditions, you can brake at the 3, but you really can't ever go past the 3. But if you have a tailwind, like I do in this practice session, then well, it's only 2 miles an hour, so it really doesn't make a difference. But I brake just before it. And let me just go outside the car so you can see that. Whoops. You can see I brake just before it, and then it's heavy braking, and as you can see, you're going to downshift into second gear for turn 1. And you turn in and downshift into second, so it's kind of tricky if you're new maybe, but it's really not that difficult. And then you just want to make sure your car is slowed down enough so you're still braking as you turn in, and you want to get back to power before the apex, since there's a pretty high speed section coming up after this. So if you can get the car slowed down before the turn, but not too much, then you can just get on the power right before the apex here and get a good run out of the turn. The exit is far more important than the entry, as normal. You can see how early I got back to power there, giving me a good run going into this next left-hander here. I think it's turn 3. Now for turn 3, you want to come out as far to the right as possible, all the way over to the grass, and then you want to brake right here where this escape road comes out. That's pretty much your braking point there. Since there aren't any cones, that's what I use. And I like to left foot brake around here, just because you don't have to downshift, and it's not a heavy braking as you can see over here in the pedal box. It's just pretty much halfway, 50% brakes. And just be careful not to go into the grass over here, because it can catch you out and then you'll end up in this nice wall over here, and it's not too comfy over there. So you want to try to avoid staying out of the grass, but go as close as possible in order to get a good run through turn 3. It might not be turn 3, it might be turn 2, but I call it 3. Like I said, I'll left foot brake there and then just let it coast for a little bit after you brake, and then you can get up on these curbs. It's no problem. It's not going to upset the car or anything like that. I didn't hit him too much right there, but you can go up pretty high on those and it's no problem. And here I stayed within the boundaries, but you can actually put 2 wheels into the dirt here and not get an off track, so you don't have to worry about that too much. just if you put four wheels off, obviously you get an off track, and if you're qualifying, it's not going to count, and there's a good chance the car will get loose and you can end up in the wall again, and that's never a good thing. So it's best just to stay on the track, on the curb. Try not to put any wheels into the grass or the sand over there. This turn you can take flat, but as you can see in a second, I'm going to do about a 50% throttle lift. That's only to keep the car out of the rev limiter. I don't like hearing the rev limiter. That's basically the only reason why I lifted. You can keep it flat, no problem. I like to lift. I do a full lift in the race just to be sure, but it's perfectly fine. You can go full throttle through here and you're not going to end up in the grass or anything. And braking for this turn is kind of tricky. There's no braking point that I use. Maybe somebody else can see. Maybe they use the tree on the right or a grandstand over there on the hill. But I really don't use a braking point. I've done so many laps around this track that I know where to brake. But I do get it wrong sometimes. So I'll let you look at that a couple more times to see, so you can see where I brake, because I just do it by feel. I really don't look at anything. One more time from a different angle. So I don't really know where I brake myself. Like I said, it's just by feel, so hopefully you can find a braking point from there. Just basically practice is the best way to brake, find the braking point for that turn. And for this next left-hander, you can go either third gear or second gear. I think it's a little bit faster to go to second, but if you're not comfortable downshifting that many times, then third gear is perfectly fine. I like to stay in the middle of the road, but if you're too fast through this right-hander, you're going to be all the way out to the left over here, close to the grass, and then if that happens, I just like to brake and turn to the right, so my right wheels are on this dotted line. But if I'm not going too fast through the previous turn, then I like to keep the car right in the middle here. It's not necessary to go so wide there. You're just going to lose time, so try to keep it in the middle of the track. You can go up on this curb here, but you'll get some wheel spin if you're in second gear. Third gear, you're not going to get any wheel spin if you go up on the curb. It's not a big deal. If you get wheel spin, just be wary of it. Just be aware and know that it could happen, so it doesn't catch you out. You can see I got some wheel spin there, and I had to do a tiny correction, but I probably actually didn't need to do it. But like I said, nothing major there. Just be careful over the curb. And then upshift into third if you're in second. If you kept it in third, then obviously you don't need to do anything. And for this next right-hander, you can also downshift to second again, or keep it in third. So basically you can stay in third for these next few corners, or if you want to, it is a little bit faster to go into second, but maybe like a tenth of a second per lap, if that, so it's not a huge deal. And depending on the wind conditions, this turn can be tricky. The car can become loose, and I've seen a bunch of guys spin here during this week. I think the wind conditions were different than last season, so a bunch of people have been spinning here. So just be careful not to brake too late. I like to brake in the straight line here, and as you can see, it is full braking because the ABS system has been upgraded in the new tire model. So sometimes you can just do full brakes and let the ABS sort it out for you, but sometimes you still have to modulate it. But here you can do full brakes since you're not going that fast, and then it's just a short period of time, but a large pressure. And try to get off the brakes before you turn in, just to avoid that oversteer. You can see I had to catch it just a little bit there. There was a small moment, but nothing major. And the same thing with the curb here. If you're in second gear, even in third gear, you'll get wheel spin if you go up on the curb over here. So I recommend staying away from the curb if you can. In this particular lap, I went up on it. You don't really lose any time from doing it, but you'll get some wheel spin. You might hit the rev limiter, and the car could get a little loose, but So I try to stay away from it, but it's not the end of the world if you hit it. So you could hear the car bouncing off the rev limiter there. That was actually because of wheel spin. It wasn't because I was out of gear. I almost was, but you can go 55 miles an hour in second, and I was only going 53 through that turn, so that was just a wheel spin. And the exit of that turn is important because it's full throttle all the way until the final turn. And the line through these S's is pretty important. You can go all the way out here if you're going too fast through the previous turn, but otherwise I like to keep it sort of in the middle of the road, a little bit to the left of that, just to the left of these white lines here. And then basically going through the S's, you just want to modulate your steering angle so you don't have too much, so it doesn't slow the car down too much. And obviously you have to turn the car enough so that it makes it through the turn, but not too much so that it understeers and you lose time. It's okay to use all the curbs in the S's, by the way. I didn't use those, but I think I used the next two. And over here, coming out of the left-hander, the left S rather, just clip that curb. If you take too much and you go into the grass, right here, if you go into the grass, it's not very lenient. It'll give you a 1x pretty easily through there, so try not to go in the grass. But you can clip the curb, and that's fine. And then you want to stay as close to this white line as possible to get a good run through here, this next right-hand S. If you're over here, you're going to have to lift, maybe even brake to make that turn, but over here, you can stay full throttle the whole time, no problem. And I like to turn in pretty hard, pretty aggressively, and so sometimes I have to make an immediate correction, which I think I do here, if I recall. But turning the car in aggressively like that just helps it get turned in the right direction without putting too much steering angle in. Yeah, I just had a tiny little bit of correction there. And then you can use this curb, you can use it all, it's no problem. If you go over the curb and into the grass, then that can push you wide, and then therefore into the grass on the outside of the track when you track out, and then into the wall. So don't go into the grass, but feel free to use all the curb. And definitely use the curb over here too. But this is kind of a scary one, because you want to use all the curb like I did here, but since you're turning right, since it's a right-hander, even though you don't really realize it in the car, you can see there's steering angle on, it's a right-hander, and you're going 91 miles an hour. Not exactly 91, but I am right here. You'll be going about 90, and if you hit this grass right here, it upsets the car, and what will most likely happen is that you'll get sideways, try to correct it, and then the car will grip again since it's on pavement, and then you'll go right into that barrier. So be careful, know where your car limit is, but definitely use the curb on the outside for a good lap time. Now, depending on wind conditions, if you have a tailwind or a headwind here, you might not need to shift up into fifth, and also depending on how you took the S's, if you're going fast enough, you might not need to shift into fifth. But like I said in the beginning of the video, there's only a 2-mile-per-hour wind in this session. It's just a test session. It wasn't anything official like qualifying or anything like that. So there wasn't any wind, and I got the S's down pretty good this lap, so I had to shift into fifth before the final turn. If you don't want to upshift just for half a second or a second, however long it is here, and then you don't want to back downshift into fourth, you can just leave it in fourth and ride it on the rev limiter. But like I said, depending on the wind conditions, you might not even touch the limiter. So that varies from session to session. But if you do shift up into fifth, then you're going to have to obviously shift back to fourth for this turn because it's a fourth gear turn. And you want to brake heavily and stay as close to the white line as possible. What I use for a braking point here, since there aren't any markers again, I use this little piece of like worn down grass. I guess there's dirt underneath there, the little gray part there. That's what I use as a braking marker. I brake just before it, so right when it's above the dashboard, and it comes at you pretty quick. Right when it's above the dashboard is when I brake, as you can see here, and then also heel toe and downshift into fourth. And then I'm off the brakes here before I turn in, so all your braking is done in a straight line, and then let the car coast until you're slow enough where you can make the turn. There's not a particular speed I shoot for 85, 86 miles an hour, but it's not always the same depending on your line and stuff like that. So that's just another thing you have to practice to know how fast you can take it before getting onto the throttle again. You can see I let it coast for a while, but this is definitely a momentum turn, so you don't want to scrub off too much speed by braking or letting it coast too long. And obviously it goes on to the longest straightaway, the front straight, so it's a very important turn. You can use the curb here, but it's not advantageous, so I try to stay away from it, but it doesn't hurt you from doing it either, so if you're more comfortable using the curb, then feel free. And you can put 4 wheels over the curbs here, no problem. You can actually even put 2 wheels into the sand over here, and you won't get an off track. But if you put more than half of your car into the sand, then you'll get an off track. So yeah, you just track out really wide here, no problem. Carry the speed through the turn onto the front straight, and that's a lap around Summit Point. Hope the tutorial helped. Thanks for watching, guys.